My name's Alex. I'm 35, live alone in a quiet apartment block, and for the past few months, my neighbor, Grace, has been hard to ignore. She's 41, confident, always put together, and whenever she passed me in the hallway, she had this calm, almost teasing smile. We didn't talk much until recently when our elevators broke and we both had to wait downstairs for the repair guy. We chatted. It was casual, but her eyes said more than her words. A few days later, I got home late from work, tired, hungry, and as I walked past her door, it creaked open slightly, and I heard her say, "Alex." I turned, surprised, and she stepped out wearing an oversized sweater, no makeup, hair tied back. "You hungry?" she asked, holding up a glass of wine. I hesitated, but nodded. "Come in. I made too much," she added with a smile. I stepped in, and she closed the door behind me, but slower than usual, like she didn't want it to reopen anytime soon. The moment the door clicked shut, the air between us changed. Soft music played in the background, something jazzy, low, the kind that wraps around you without asking. She walked ahead of me barefoot, motioning toward the kitchen. "Dinner's still warm," she said, setting the wine down on the table. I looked around. The lights were dim, cozy. The whole place smelled like cinnamon and garlic. "Hope you like roasted chicken," she added, glancing over her shoulder. I nodded. "Smells amazing." We sat across from each other, talking about small things, neighbors, work, how the elevator still wasn't fixed. But every time our eyes met, there was something unspoken, a quiet rhythm building beneath the surface. After dinner, she poured another glass and leaned back in her chair, her eyes softer now, slower. "It's nice having company for once," she said. I didn't expect to enjoy it this much. I smiled. "Me neither." She stood up, walked to the window, then turned back to face me. "You don't have to leave yet, do you?" Her voice was gentle, but her meaning wasn't unclear. I stood slowly, heart pounding a little harder now. "I wasn't planning to," I said. She stepped closer, reached past me, and turned off the kitchen light, leaving only the soft glow from the hallway. Then she looked up at me and whispered, "Good." She stood there for a second, close enough for me to feel the warmth of her skin, but not touching, just looking up at me with that same calm confidence she always carried in the hallway. Only now it was focused entirely on me. Her hand brushed against mine, slow and deliberate, then moved up to rest lightly on my chest. "You've been pretending you don't notice me," she said quietly, "but I see the way you look." I didn't deny it, didn't even try, because she was right. Every time we crossed paths, every stolen glance, it had been leading to this. "I didn't want to assume," I replied, my voice lower than usual. She stepped even closer, our bodies nearly touching. "Well, now you don't have to." Her fingers trailed along my collarbone, slow and featherlight. "I don't invite just anyone in, Alex," she said, "and I don't ask them to stay unless I want them to." Her breath was warm on my neck, her lips so close I could feel them move as she whispered, "So are you going to keep standing there, or are you going to do something about it?" I didn't answer with words, just closed the space between us and kissed her, slow at first, testing, but she didn't hesitate, didn't pull away. Her hand slid up behind my neck, holding me there like she'd been waiting for this moment, like we both had. Her lips were soft, confident, hungry in a quiet kind of way, the kind that says this isn't new, it's just finally happening. She pulled back for a second, just enough to whisper, "You're late." "You know," I raised an eyebrow, and she smiled. "I've been hoping this would happen for weeks." She took my hand and led me down the hallway, her fingers laced with mine, warm and steady. The moment we stepped into her bedroom, she turned to face me again, her eyes darker now, more serious. "No games, no pretending tomorrow," she said. "I want this to be real." I nodded. "It already is." She kissed me again, deeper this time, pulling me down with her as the door closed behind us and the rest of the world disappeared. Nothing rushed, nothing forced, just two people letting go of the weight, and finally letting it all happen. We moved together like we already knew each other's rhythm. No awkwardness, no hesitation, just quiet urgency, and a kind of closeness that felt earned, not given. The way her hands gripped my back, the way she whispered my name in the dark, it all told the same story. This wasn't just a moment, it was a release of everything we'd been holding back. The night stretched long, full of touches that said more than words ever could, and when we finally lay still, tangled together in the soft heat of her sheets, there was no tension, just a silence that felt complete. She rested her head on my chest, her fingers tracing small patterns over my skin. "I didn't expect this to feel so safe," she murmured. I wrapped my arms tighter around her, kissed the top of her head. "That makes two of us." She looked up at me, eyes half closed. closed, smile lazy and warm. You're not going anywhere, are you? I shook my head. Not a chance. She let out a small laugh, one that melted into the pillow as she drifted off, and I laid there wide awake, not because I couldn't sleep, but because I didn't want to miss a second of what it felt like to finally be exactly where I wanted to be. The morning sun filtered gently through the curtains, casting golden streaks across the bed. Her breathing was steady, face calm against my shoulder, and for the first time in years, I felt like I didn't need to be anywhere else. I didn't rush to check my phone or think about what came next. I just lay there, still, her body curled against mine like it belonged there, like this was routine instead of something new. When she finally stirred, her eyes blinked open slowly, and she looked at me with a sleepy smile. Still here? She whispered, her voice low and raspy. I smiled back. Told you I wasn't going anywhere. She stretched, her fingers brushing along my arm. Good, she said, because I made plans for us. I raised an eyebrow. Already. She nodded, grinning. You owe me breakfast. We both laughed, and just like that, the weight of what happened didn't feel heavy. It felt easy. We got up slowly, making coffee, joking, passing by each other in the hallway and exchanging touches that felt casual, but meant more. This wasn't just a night that turned into morning. It was the start of something quiet, but undeniable, something that didn't need labels, just time. And I knew as I watched her dancing barefoot in the kitchen to some old song on the radio, I'd be back tomorrow, and the day after that, because home wasn't just a place anymore. It was wherever she was. We ate breakfast by the window, her legs tucked under her hair messy, but beautiful in a way that made it impossible to look away. She poured more coffee and slid the cup toward me with a grin. You're quieter today, she said. I shrugged. I'm just taking it in. She tilted her head, amused. Taking what in? I looked at her for a moment, then said, this, you, us, all of it. She softened instantly, reaching across the table to take my hand. Then take your time, she said. I'm not in a rush, and neither was I. We talked for hours like we hadn't already shared everything the night before, laughed about awkward neighbors, shared bits of ourselves we usually kept hidden. She told me about her failed marriage. I told her about the times I didn't let anyone get close enough to matter, and somehow it didn't feel heavy. It felt freeing, like we were finally getting to know each other for real, not through hallway glances or polite hellos, but through slow, quiet truths. Later, as I got ready to leave, just for a few hours, she stood by the door, holding my jacket. You'll come back tonight? She asked. I stepped close, kissed her softly. You want me to? She smiled. Yeah, I really do. I kissed her again, longer this time, and whispered, then I'll be here that evening, as promised. I came back, holding a bottle of wine in one hand and a bag of her favorite takeout in the other. She opened the door barefoot, wearing that same oversized sweater that somehow made my heart race more than anything tight ever could. You came, she said with a smile that was half playful, half relieved. I said I would, I replied. Stepping inside, she took the bag from me and leaned in for a kiss, slow and lingering, like a quiet welcome. We sat on the couch this time, not the table, plates on our laps, a movie playing quietly in the background that neither of us was really watching. Her legs were tucked under mine, her hand resting lightly on my thigh, occasionally tightening when something in the movie made her laugh or gasp, but mostly we were just tuned into each other. After we ate, she leaned into me and whispered, you feel good to be around. I turned, kissed her temple. So do you. She shifted, settling into my arms, and I could feel her smile against my chest. I don't know where this is going, she murmured, but I like where it's starting. I looked down at her, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. Then let's not worry about the rest. Let's just keep showing up. She nodded against me. Deal. And in the quiet that followed, her breathing slowed, her hand finding mine again. I realized something I hadn't said out loud. I didn't just want to show up, I wanted to stay. Eventually the movie ended, but neither of us moved to turn off the screen. We just sat there in the dim light, tangled together, her head still resting on my chest, her fingers now gently drawing circles along my arm. It wasn't about the silence. It was about the comfort in it, the kind that didn't need to be filled with words. You know, she whispered finally, I don't even remember what life was like before you knocked on my door that night. I smiled, kissed the top of her head, same, and I didn't even knock. You called me in. She let out a quiet laugh. Best decision I made in a long time. She pulled back just enough to look up at me, her eyes a little shinier now, more serious. Don't vanish on me, okay? I held her gaze, firm and calm. I won't. We sat there like that for a while longer, until she yawned and pulled me gently toward the bedroom again, not with urgency, but with something better, the kind of trust that builds over nights like these. We lay down in the dark, our breathing sinking without trying, and just before she drifted off again, she whispered, "Feels like home." I tightened my arms around her and answered, without hesitation, because it is the following weeks passed like a slow-burning dream. Every evening I found myself at her door, sometimes with flowers, sometimes just with stories from my day, and every time she opened it, it felt less like visiting someone and more like coming back to where I belonged. We developed our quiet rituals, coffee before the sun rose, dinners that turned into long conversations on the couch, shared playlists that somehow captured everything we weren't always saying out loud. She started leaving her hairbrush on my sink. I kept a change of clothes in her closet without talking about it, but we both noticed. One night, after a quiet dinner, she took my hand and led me to the window, the city lights glowing beneath us. "You've changed me," she said, almost like she wasn't sure she should admit it, not because I needed fixing, but because now I don't feel so alone. I turned her to face me, my hands resting on her waist. "You didn't need changing, Grace. You just needed someone who saw the real you." She smiled, then looked away like the moment was too big to hold all at once. "So what do we call this?" she asked, still not meeting my eyes. I didn't hesitate. "Whatever we want as long as it's together." She finally looked up, smiled that familiar slow smile, and whispered, "Together sounds perfect." Spring came quietly, but everything felt different, lighter, fuller. I'd wake up with her curled into me, sunlight slipping through the curtains, the smell of coffee already drifting from the kitchen, and I'd wonder how I ever called any place home before her. One Saturday morning, as we walked through the farmer's market hand in hand, she stopped at a flower stand, picked up a small pot of lavender, and said, "This one's for the windowsill. It'll remind you of me when you're grumpy." I laughed. "So every morning then?" She nudged me with her elbow, but didn't let go of my hand, and in that ordinary moment, I realized there wasn't going to be a big dramatic ending to our story, no twist, no heartbreak, because the real magic was in how beautifully simple it all became. Later that evening, as we lay on the couch watching the rain, she whispered, "I used to think love had to hurt to feel real." I looked at her, kissed her softly, and said, "Then let's keep proving that wrong, one quiet day at a time." And as her head rested on my chest, her fingers intertwined with mine, I knew the truth. I hadn't just fallen in love with her, I'd finally found peace.